Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Katie Gideon, and I am dialing in from Edinburgh, Scotland. I am going to be your on camera facilitator for this lovely Saturday morning weekly setup social for the month of February. Can you believe that we are setting up week 6? Which I know sounds it's one of those sounds so close yet so far. I can't believe it. I feel like January was definitely a little bit on the slower side, but now that it's February, I'm excited. I am ready to kick off a new month, which means we get to kick off a new theme. So welcome everyone that has joined us. I want to give a shout out to Maya, who's going to be my co-facilitator. She's going to be in the chat. She is joining us from a somewhat rainy Colorado. And so thank you everyone for here. I love seeing some of the names that I recognize for some of our returning socialers. Let us know in the chat if this is your first social, if this is your first weekly setup, or maybe your first kind of dive into this, because I feel like Saturdays are a different vibe than Sundays. Sundays are different than Mondays. So everyone's got their whole unique thing. But if you are new, don't worry. You're going to have a lot of examples, a lot of options. So just let us know. We are excited that everybody is here. We are excited to kick off a new month. And if you make sure that your chat is set to everyone, if you want to share with the Sonder Social family in the chat, if you go to hosts and panelists, that'll just be myself and Maya, so you can always ask questions that way. But we are excited to get started. As always, be kind and courteous to yourself and others, no promotions or spam. Please respect everyone's privacy, no hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions. Excuse me, that's going to be my thorn this week. Still fighting a sore throat. Then you can also redirect customer care inquiries to our team, hello@silkandsonder.com. So even though myself and Maya have some information, we do not have all. So we will certainly have you direct those questions there. And as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. I feel like this is certainly kind of a great frame as we move into a new theme. If you were with us last month, the theme ambition, I feel like has some good and some bad and some everything in between. So it's definitely one of those, if this particular theme is not something you want to explore, not something you need, you can definitely set up those mental boundaries, mental barriers. But we always recommend, a little bit of a challenge, because sometimes something that you are not as drawn to, turns out you can actually learn a lot on your self-care journey, a lot about kind of self-reflection as you deal with some of these newer themes. So with that being said, this month's theme is confidence. And I do feel like it is a really clever segue from ambition to confidence, because I think one of the things that I learned for sure on ambition is that it can be adaptable. You're going to have different ambition at different milestones. And so for me, for confidence, I think confidence is another one of those that is a little bit adaptable. But what I find challenging about confidence is making the walk the walk and talk the talk match. And so I've had to get creative with kind of showing confidence versus just saying that you're confident and hiding behind some of the self-doubt, but calling it self-confidence. And then I think very, very deep down in my core, for me, confidence is the strength to ignore or drown out the voice in your head that says you can't. I have a very loud choir of voices that definitely err on the negativity, which I feel like is part of that kind of self-motivation, because I am my biggest doubter. I've got the least amount of faith in myself, and not because I'm trying to get sympathy here. It's just more of that is just kind of how I have adopted, because at the end of the day, confidence is not something that I openly struggle with. Confidence is the thing that absolutely, when they say cry into your pillow at night, it's usually my lack of confidence that's causing that. So those are just my thoughts and feelings on confidence. I would love to hear yours in the chat, especially if it's a little bit tricky, if it's something that you can definitely fall into and figure it out. But it's going to be an interesting month. I always think for ones that I'm just like, this is a tricky one. It's one that I wholeheartedly embrace, but I just have a weird relationship with it. So hopefully we'll get to dive into our relationships with it. So we're going to do our confidence mind map, which is unique to the weekly setup. We'll do a rosebud thorn reflection on the previous week, and then move into our weekly setup pages. So, if you have not done a confidence or a mind map before, it is our opportunity to reflect and dive a little bit deeper into the month's theme. And it is unique to the weekly setups. So, this is not actually published in the journal. This is going to be something that we're going to set up. It is a prompt that is unique to just the setups, but don't worry if you miss one, if you show up late. We always include the previous ones. So, when it goes to what page, you're actually going to find a blank page in your journal. I am on one of just the random blank pages. I know a lot of people will use the very last blank page, or you can tuck it into other sections of the weekly spread, the scratch pad. Maybe this is where you repurpose your weekly to-dos. But most of the time, we're going to look for that kind of large blank page because we're going to basically break that page into 4 different categories. Don't worry, I will show you my example. But we're thinking in terms of confidence. And within confidence, week 1, we're going to kind of explore the confidence in our abilities. So the prompt is that you're going to reflect on your 3 greatest strengths, jot down specific examples of actions, behaviors, or accomplishments that demonstrate them. So that's our prompt. Don't worry, it's included on both slides. So this is my example, like I said, on a blank page. For those that have been with us since December, I got really attached to the Christmas lights. So I had Christmas lights. I had January kind of muted pastel lights. So now you get flowers on vines because it makes me happy. So the prompt again is for week 1. So you're going to take your blank page, break it up into 4 weeks because we're going to go over 4 weeks of these. And again, if you always forget one, don't worry, we'll include the previous weeks. And so we're wanting to find those 3 greatest strengths and jot down specific examples. So you can always come back to the theme of confidence or its synonyms. And then you can also, if you're having a hard time kind of narrowing down maybe the 3 ways that you see yourself, I have find that a little tricky when I'm in just like a weird little funk. You can always ask yourself, what are the 3 strengths that someone else that you know that loves you, that knows you really well, how would they describe your 3 strengths? Or you can always focus on maybe one strength or make a list of more than 3. I found this that kind of my 3 strengths that I came up with actually kind of all kind of fed within each other. And I think it was more of just the different demonstration of the same kind of concept. So for me, it was persistence and tenacious. Yeah, throw in kind of my unabridged optimism, and then my kind of keep on keeping on, which was the I'll figure it out. I am very lucky that I have the support system that I do, that I can fail spectacularly. And I've got a great family and friends that will help me figure it out so I can have kind of that um, high level of confidence. But I think it's more of the idea of having to be persistent, being tenacious, kind of building into some of the overlying optimism of things are not always going to go the way I want, but if I work hard, I'm going to figure it out. I'll find it. And so that's kind of feels like for me how it overlays with confidence. So again, we are on a blank page in your journal. We are reflecting on the confidence in your abilities, and we'll just continue to build from week to week, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I know this is definitely one of those that can get a little tricky as you kind of do this for the first time. But what's great about these prompts is you can use them the entire week to kind of come back and look at. And I feel like another way is I struggled with trying to like define what I thought was a strength. So I was getting a little hung up on just like the words. So I broke away from that and kind of more described around it, or described, as I put it, like the vibe of things. So I think you can always look at it that way, as where maybe you can't quite define it in a word, but you can certainly describe the behavior or the action or kind of an accomplishment in that side. And I also feel like this is another one of those that you can use it as potentially as some aspirations. So maybe there are certain traits that you want um, to focus on or get a little bit better at, turn them into a little bit more on the core value. But I think it's always a starting point, and I feel like this is another one of those, if you even like treat it as like a job interview question, where it's like, what are your three strengths and what are your three weaknesses? And I still stutter every single time on a lot of them. And a lot of it, I think, is just what kind of mood am I in? What kind of week did I have? Which I think is always interesting to kind of do this, because I guarantee you, if you ask me this question in like 2 or 3 months, it'll probably be a different answer. So there's always an opportunity to turn it into kind of what future you would want your strengths and weaknesses to be. What are the reasons that the people love and support you? What are those qualities that they're drawn to? Or sometimes, again, you can't quite define it, or you don't want to define it, can't be put in a box, but you can describe some of those situations. So, and a lot of it, I think it also deals with perspective. A lot of times people will say things that you don't see it that way, but when you actually kind of break it down or get out of your head, it's those situations are, you're actually, very brave in one of those situations that were brought up. So thank you, everyone, for sharing. You can continue to work on it this week. And then when you come back next week, we'll have a new prompt and we'll be able to go from there. So now we are moving to the rosebud thorn. So if you are in your February journal, this is on page 30. If you don't have your journal yet, don't worry. You can take notes, take screenshots, get your phone out, or you can have some sticky notes. But again, we're on page 30 for the rosebud thorn. This is an opportunity to celebrate the wins of the week, acknowledge the things that maybe didn't go so well, and sort of maybe add some of the optimism or kind of planning purposes for things that you're just not quite sure where they're going to fall, but it's something you're looking forward to. So for a rose, that is a highlight, a win, something you did well, something that made you smile. And sometimes it's just the fact that the rose can be, it's a new month or it is a new week, especially if you've just had a week. Um, or the bud is also something that you're looking forward to, something that's on the horizon, something that's exciting, something that you're not too quite sure if it's going to be a rose or a thorn, something you're planning for. Thorn is then something that is a challenge, something that didn't go so well, something that was a speed bump. And I think we kind of get the question is like, what does this serve? And so if you are big on the monthly reflections, this is an opportunity to kind of find what are things that you could stop, start, and continue. So the bud is something that you can start, a rose, because that came about. Maybe that's something that you can attribute to a continuation. Thorn, maybe it's plugged into something that you need to stop doing, or someone you need to stop seeing, stop being around. So that's kind of the connection that we see there. But I also use it a little bit as a litmus test to figure out what kind of week I had. How quickly was I able to find a rose? How quickly was I able to find a thorn? Is there more, like, if I were to do a pros and cons list, do I have more cons than pros? And I think it kind of then determines what type of headspace I had. But I always think it's a really great way to look on the roller coaster that is the week that you had, the month that you had, and those type of things. So for me, my rose was my mom's birthday is coming up, and so I had an edible arrangement delivered to her, and she gets so excited about those things because who doesn't love chocolate covered fruit? But it was one of those, she had just had lunch, it was delivered right after, and she was just so excited because she knew lunch was not nearly as satisfying as it should have been, and she just squealed when the van pulled up and it was delivered. So always nice to put a smile on my mom's face because she deserves it. Bud is, I found a hairdresser here. So I got my hair cut and colored and I really liked it. I really liked her. It's really close. So I'm excited that I'll be able to tame the mane that I have when it needs it. My thorn is I'm still fighting this sore throat. I'm not too sure what it is, but if I start magically choking. I will try to minimize it, but I've got like three different types of drinks going on back here. And so it's just kind of cramping my style. So if you want to share your rosebud thorn in the chat, we would love to see it because we want to celebrate those roses, get excited with you on those buds, but also provide that extra support. Hugs, thoughts, and prayers through the thorns, and we'll see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. A couple other kind of trends I feel like to acknowledge is there's absolutely going to be those weeks where one thing is going to be your rosebud and your thorn. That's perfectly fine. And you know, sometimes you're really not going to find something for each category, and that's also okay. I feel like that kind of feeds into the reflection opportunity of how can you either, you know, build some opportunity or find some opportunity. You know, maybe that falls into a start category. So it's one of those things. Don't get frustrated, don't get down. But as I always recommend, if it's a little tricky to find a rose, one of the homework I had to do when I was working with my therapist was to find something that I did well every single day. And so you can track that on the weekly spread under one thing, or use the Mind Body Health Plan, repurpose some of those for kind of celebrate the wins. It was what I considered to be a fairly simple exercise, but it was extremely powerful. And I realized just how, you know, dwelling on the negative I can be, and that's not okay. But certainly an opportunity to reframe, as well as, again, look for things to celebrate, things to get excited about, but also things that maybe you need a little bit of support, and just putting it out into the universe usually will always make everybody feel just a little bit better. So thank you everyone for sharing. We are now going to move to our weekly planner. So as said, we were in week 6 of this year, and so we're going to be on page 32 and page 33 in your February journal. And if you are newer, what we always say is that there is no right or wrong way to journal. There is no right or wrong way to do your self care or self care journey. No one is going to grade this. No one is going to expect you to turn it in. So you can set it up however you want. You can adjust it to however you want. You can absolutely do it exactly as it is listed, or you can repurpose. And there's certainly a bunch of different ways that you can repurpose to make it functional. But then there are also, I feel like there's those days or the weeks where you're just like, I don't want to do anything today. And that's okay. You can absolutely just show up to the social to listen to the music. If the music is too much, you can mute it. If you are here just to work and want to not be in the chat, that's perfectly fine as well. It's just this time that you have set aside for you to kind of give yourself the opportunity to focus on your self-care for this hour. So we're going to start at the top of page 32 in your February journal with "This week I want to feel." The way I frame this is, how do I want to feel this time next week? I always want a baseline. I always want something I can come back to. I always try to achieve some sort of equilibrium each week. So this is kind of my guiding focal point for that. So I always try to think, how do I want to feel this time next week? So that I can then build the goals and the to-do list and the habits and activities to help me reach that end state of how I want to feel. And so you can certainly look at this with stickers. Maybe it's something as 1% better. You want to feel happy. You want to feel resourceful. You want to feel enough. Another approach is maybe you want to feel more something and less something. Maybe you need a different word for a different day because you got to have a different attitude each day. Or maybe it's kind of the finding the word and then diving into the reflection of how you want to use that word. Because again, sometimes you cannot be defined by a word. So I'm a big fan of putting ish at the bottom of it, adding to it. Same thing with, I am continuing to kind of carry over a word that I'd previously used, which was relentless. And that's because I've had to be very particular about my time because I want to do a lot. I want to accomplish a lot right now. And so I need to be very picky, to the point of relentless, of taking control of my time and using it the best I want. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to just kind of throw some of those how you want to feel this time next week into the chat, and we'll see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. It doesn't matter what kind of mood I'm in. I always love reading the chat during this part of the social because there's so much optimism, hope, and excitement of how we're going to achieve what we want to achieve this time next week. So you all are very inspirational. And then I always feel like there's some cleverness to kind of how you present your word. For example, the one in the enough, it takes up the whole space. So it's taking up more space, being enough, even the little things of like, did you capitalize all the letters in the word in the chat? So I always feel like that's a fun trend to also look like how excited I am for the week. Is it I'm excited because it's something fun, something new, something different? Or is it excited because I am wanting to be productive? I feel like all those kind of feed into each other, but it's also great to have some accountability buddies here, especially when you have kind of similar words and you're able to work on that with each other. So we're still again on page 32. We're now moving slightly down the page with the weekly major 3 goals. And just because this is called weekly major 3 goals doesn't mean you can't change it. Maybe this is just major 3 goals. Maybe this is minor 3 goals. Maybe this is weekly major 2 goals. Maybe it's just weekly goals. So feel free to make those changes and alterations. But again, stickers are always a great motivation. We have such great stickers in this time thing. So maybe that's the vibe you're going for because you can't quite put it in words. But you certainly want to use it to guide. For me, these are the emotional and or mental reminders I usually need to keep so that I can feel the way I want to feel this time next week. You can also categorize it. Maybe it's a mind, body, heart, professional mind and body. Um, the school, self, and family. Maybe again, it's just kind of those helpful reminders. Maybe it's a fun alliteration with frog, fun, and fierce. Or maybe these categories tie directly into your to-do list as the one on the bottom. So, or maybe this is again a repurposing thing. I love that someone always says they need lines for their to-do list. So they cross out weekly major 3 goals, and this is their to-do section, and the weekly major 3 goals goes into the large square just to the left. So let us know, are you a categories person? Is this your kind of mental and emotional reminders? Or are these just kind of 3 things that you absolutely want to get done this week, or kind of on a larger path for the month or even the year? And we'll see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. Love seeing the different types of categories, as well as, kind of this is how you approach these different areas. But I always like it's kind of like an overarching reminder. I feel like that's kind of a good way to use this particular one. Again, if you don't have those very specific goals, or maybe that's what you need to kind of work on is finding some of those specific goals. But all still trying to come to the what do you need to do to feel the way you want to feel this time next week. So thank you for sharing. We are still on page 32 in the January journal. We're just now moving across the page with the weekly to-dos. And so these can certainly be a to-do list. Maybe it is a to-da list. The difference between the to-do and the to-da is that even though everything is to done, it's a different mindset on how you approach it. So I am, again, a big to-da person, but I have also found that incorporating the Eisenhower matrix every once in a while is really great, especially when I have a lot of random things that I need to do. And so the Eisenhower matrix is kind of the do, decide, delegate, drop, or delete section. Certainly a lot of those things I have found that if I'm carrying it over from week to week, I usually need to maybe approach it from a slightly different thought process than the to-dos. And a lot of times the things that carry over are actually things that I should drop, delete, or actually delegate. So I feel like this becomes one of those really flexible sections that, depending on what I need for that week or what I want to accomplish, it's going to look a little bit different. And that's absolutely a great opportunity to readjust. So that's, again, where I found if I'm carrying over the same things week to week, maybe I just need to change how I am setting it up. Another method is the Pomodoro technique, which is where you pick a task, set a timer, work on that task until the timer is up, then take a break, and then you can accomplish it that way. Or maybe this is where your to-do bingo is, which, again, is the similar thought to just how you approach it. Another thing that we have also kind of realized is that everyone has the same 24 hours in a day, but needing to prioritize how you spend that time. So maybe the need, want, hope is a way to break down your to-do list to get a different perspective so that you can accomplish these things. Maybe it's actually where you just want to be, or maybe it's a stop. Maya put in, she liked the pyramid, which, again, I think is another creative way to kind of display your to-do list a little bit differently. So maybe the bingos aren't for you, maybe a to-do list isn't for you, but being able to design maybe a ladder, or in this case a pyramid, of things you want to do to reach the top of your mountain or your apex for that week. Or maybe this is not where you want to put any of these things. Could you put your to-do list somewhere else? Maybe this is where you track exercise. Maybe this is where you do your mind map. But there's a lot of different options for here on the to-do list. And like I said, when I found myself carrying too many things over, I usually realized that I probably needed to do it a different way, or approach my to-do list a little bit differently so that I could get everything accomplished. So let us know how you are going to use your to-do list or your to-do list, or what are maybe some of the struggles you're running into. And we'll see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. What I also think is really what's nice about this particular section is we all know that our weeks are going to look a little bit different from week to week. A random week in February is going to look very different than a week in December. Same thing in like a week in August. So the opportunity to make adjustments here, and that's where I feel like I do a lot of adjustments on kind of a week to week basis, even though I am a creature of habit. A lot of my to-do items do tend to kind of stay the same, but having to reframe and refocus on how I approach those is absolutely going to be dependent on what my week is going to look like. And as always, if it doesn't work this week, you can always do it differently next week. So I feel like that's always kind of a plus, especially when you have these weekly setups. So always recommend trying something, and if it doesn't work, erase it, start over, do something different. Or if it's not working for you and you need it to do something else, take some washi tape, take some of those markers and pens, breaking up with perfection, and changing it. You are not restricted to what it says here. Like you said, no one's grading it. So the opportunity to turn it into what's actually productive for you and something that isn't just an added negative trigger, I think is fantastic. As we move into now the habits and activities, which is at the bottom of the page on page 32. And so the difference we usually get asked is the difference between the weekly to-dos and the monthly habit trackers is kind of what is. So for the monthly, it's something that you want to do every single day. The way I approach the weekly setup is I usually carry over two or three things that I want to do every day in the month, but I add the frame of reality. Because a lot of times what prevents me from kind of the accomplishment I have is that I didn't set up my expectations better, because sometimes I cannot control my own time. And same thing with I want to move every day. Sometimes that movement is a set workout. Sometimes it is just the commute to work because I've had a busy week, or the weather is not what it needs to be. I want to read every day. Sometimes I have more time, so I don't need to necessarily put a limit on it. And sometimes that's what I need to do to take a break or make a change to kind of break up some of the monotony. So maybe, again, those are habits that you want to track. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a way to go. Maybe these are habits you want to stop, or maybe these aren't actual kind of as tangible things. Maybe these are, again, where some of those mental and emotional reminders are. And maybe the habits and activities you really want to focus on was just to be kind to yourself, accept yourself, get enough sleep, make sure you're hydrated, eat fresh foods. And just because there are 5 lines does not mean you need to have 5 habits and activities. Maybe you have 3, maybe you have 4, maybe it's just the get up every day at a certain time. What I also like is some of the approaches here is that your weekdays are going to look a little bit different than your weekends. So maybe there are habits that you only track during the week. Maybe there are habits that you want to focus on the weekends, or maybe it's the other way around. You really want to buckle down in the week, and the weekends you share with somebody else. So, the last thing you want is for these to be kind of, detract from you being present in all the things you want. Certainly if you're going on vacation or any of those type of travels, definitely love seeing people put the big old sticker over it and saying, I'm not doing this week because my priorities are elsewhere. And then as always, I am a big fan of really pretty visuals. So these are the Positively Present, which is an Instagram account that I follow. Same thing with the Brooklyn Swinson. So if you need help coming up with habits and activities or just self-care items, because it's always fun to add something, a little fun, something that makes you happy, something that can be a little silly. So all of those options are there. So let us know how you are using your weekly habit tracker, and we'll see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. Yes, I am an Instagram fan, and so that's why I love those two accounts. They're kind of a fun embedded addition to all those, and I am a sucker for like cute little graphics to go with it. And as Maya pointed out, if you haven't done your February bingo, those could be fun things to add. And I always kind of incorporate some sort of version of that each week, so I don't get to take credit for it, but I think they're really fun. And so thank you everybody for sharing. Loved seeing the different approaches and also the different things that you're kind of tracking and wanting to accomplish. So we are now going to move on to page 33. So we're going to flip that over to the second page. And again, if you have been here before, I do refer to this as the B side. I'm a music fan, so this is the B side of the record. And that's because I treat the first page as the A side, which is one of those I listen to all the time. I use that page all the time. Those are the absolutely fundamental things that I like to fill out from week to week. The B side has some really great gems every once in a while, but I don't listen to them all the time. Therefore, I don't fill this page out all the time. And that took me probably a good 2+ years in my journey to kind of finally give myself permission to do that. And that was because I just was feeling like I was coming up short because I would start with a great idea. And by like Wednesday or Thursday, I was like, yeah, it's not working. And so that's where I kind of realized if you're having a hard time kind of keeping up with the tracking it, maybe you weren't tracking the right thing. And so that's where I kind of fell into that situation. But with that being said, I know Dinah just pointed out the meal plan is that it's absolutely used for budgeting. So if you like using the meal plan for the meal planning purpose, absolutely, it is a great thing for that. It's also something if you're on a healthcare journey or maybe you're tracking symptoms with a professional, that's where you can kind of put your intake or your meals and feels, as I know someone else has used it. But you can also, maybe this is where you put your to-do list for the day. Maybe this is where your to-do and your reminders are. I've used this as a wardrobe planner. Especially when I was traveling, it helped me minimize not overpacking. But what I've also seen is kind of a little bit of a shift is where this is the affirmations from the Silk and Sonder app live, or this is kind of where you can put down some prompts that you want to look at when you do some self-care reflection or journaling day to day. So I've become a big fan of the meal plan for my soul. So those are specific prompts that you want to dive into each day. Or same thing with maybe this is where you set up your reflections. Someone wanted to feel composed that week. That's how they wanted to feel this time next week. So it was, how did I show composure today? Saw another version of that. They wanted to feel stronger. So it was, how did I show strength today? So there are a couple different options for the meal plan. So let us know if you repurpose the meal plan or if you absolutely use it as a meal plan. And we'll see you soon. Thank you everyone for sharing. There are definitely a lot of different ways to do this. I see that someone uses it for their meal plan specifically for dinner. Another great way to use that, as well as, track the meals, outfit plan, always good. And then even the how am I tracking the things that I did well, a study guide, all of those type of things. So the opportunities for this, I feel like, are definitely endless, especially when it comes to repurposing. But it's always nice to know that this is there if you need it. But if it's not really something you need that week, that's okay too. So still on page 33, under kind of the repurposing theme, my body health plan, we also see something that's pretty repurposed often. Maybe you want to turn it into a mind spirit health plan. Maybe this is where you kind of put your journal prompts. Maybe this is where your plan can live with the I feel, therefore I need. We also love a good alliteration. So maybe these are reminders for the Motivation Monday, Walking Wednesday, Thoughtful Thursday, something you did well that week, celebrating the wins. Maybe this is where your kind of cleaning chores are, or your reading log, or how did you care for yourself. We know that 7 types of rest are another thing to kind of look at, and they're coincidentally 7 days in the week. Or again, maybe this is a complete repurpose where this is your mind, body, health routine. So you kind of revamped it. And then as we move down the page to the shopping list, this is another one of those that we know that certainly can be repurposed. If you are a bingo fan, this is where the bingos can sometimes live as well. Maybe it's a boring stuff bingo where you list not only the things you need to do, but maybe some of those appointments that you have to have. Maybe this is where just kind of some self-care reminders are. Maybe this is where you're trying to get into either your daily rituals or daily routines, prayer lists, opportunity for, again, more stickers or quotes or affirmations. Maybe your bingo board needs to focus on positive self-talk. Again, I'm a big fan of doodles. I liked the idea for tracking mini breaks at work that you need to do. There are definitely times where the only reason I kind of come up from my desk for air at work is because something is probably cramped or I need to get up and do something. So the more kind of proactive, thoughtful reminders, I think, is a great idea. Same thing with the treating it as absolutely a shopping list. I know the folks that use the meal plan for the meal plan purpose will put the shopping items here. And also a don't buy and buy type list that you're tracking, so that you don't do kind of the impulse shopping or impulse buying. And then the closing out with the final section at the bottom of the page with the I am loving. This is an opportunity to put whatever random thing, or maybe it's a consistent thing that you're certainly loving doing. I am still on the Google trend of an animal and a positive aspiration. So I feel like it's kind of like those cheesy motivational posters. Nothing makes me happier than some sort of animal photo with some sort of aspirational quote. So I'll give you some time to kind of finish up your pages here, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. And believe it or not, we have reached the end of the hour. Appreciate everyone sharing. And if you want to continue the conversation and/or share some of your pages in the Silk and Sonder app, we'd love to see them. We obviously use them as examples in the socials. And I always recommend, if you are having a hard time or want to see more examples, there's usually a big flurry after the weekly setups in the app. So within the next probably hour or 2 hours, you'll be able to see some examples there. So always a big fan of checking during the post social flurry for inspiration. And then as always, Maya's going to start putting some links in the chat, or you can use your phone for the QR code. Big thing is that we always want to hear from you. So the social survey. So please, 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 please fill out the survey. And that's everything from what you want to see, when you want to see it. So schedules, make sure you include your time zone, what days of the week you want to see socials, what of socials you want to see. And same thing with Maya's also going to include the unlisted YouTube link in the chat. That is where you can see previously recorded socials. All of our socials are recorded. So if you show up late, have to leave early, or there's just a day in the week that you really need a setup, you'll be able to do that there. Unfortunately, the chat is not there, but the facilitator and the slides and the music are usually there. But give it a couple days for it to be posted, especially over the weekend. But always a great place to be there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is a link to my playlist. I'll also include the Spotify playlist. I save all of my social playlists. So if you need a good 30-minute playlist, you can absolutely find them under my account in Spotify. Big fan of those. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I am so excited to kick off a confident month of February with each and every one of you. We hope to see you again soon. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend and a fantastic week, and we will see you soon. Bye.
You know I love music, and every time I hear something hot, it makes me want to move. It makes me want to have fun. But it's something about this joint right here. This joint right here, it makes me want to let it go. Can't let this thing called love get away from you. Feel free right now, go do what you want to do. Can't let nobody take it away from you, from me, from we. No time for moping around. Are you kidding? And no time for negative vibes, 'cause I'm winning. It's been a long week, I put in my hardest. Gonna live my life, feel so good to get it right. So I like what I see when I'm looking at me, when I'm walking past the mirror. Don't stress through the night at a time in my life, ain't worried about if you feel it. Got my head on straight, I got my vibe right, I ain't gonna let you kill it. See, I wouldn't change my life, life's just fine, 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 fine. Ooh, fine, 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 fine. Ooh, just fine, 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 fine. Ooh, see, I wouldn't change my life, life's just feels so good when you're doing all the things that you wanna do. Get the best out of life, treat yourself to something new. Keep your head up high in yourself, believe in you, believe in me. Having a really good time, I'm not complaining, and I'ma still wear a smile if it's raining. I gotta enjoy myself regardless. I appreciate life, I'm so glad that it's fine. So I like what I see when I'm looking at me, when I'm walking past the mirror. Ain't worried about you and what you're gonna do, I'm a lady, so I must stay classy. Gotta keep it high, keep it together if I want to get better. See, I wouldn't change my life, life's just fine, 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 fine. Ooh, fine, 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 fine. See, I wouldn't change